What is Israel's goal with this, Colonel? Is it to just destroy Iran's nuclear capacity? Is it to just destroy Iran's military? Is it for a regime change that someone's talking about? We saw Netanyahu's speech, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that is urging Iranian people to rise up against the regime. What do you think is the goal of Israel? What is success for them when it comes to Iran?
The destruction of the Iranian state, the reduction of the country to poverty and despair. That leaves Israel as the hegemonic power of the region, with the United States backing it 100%. Those are the goals.
And would that be achieved by sustained military attacks until the military is completely deteriorated, or are they seeking, is that part of their strategy to seek a regime change?
No, it can't be accomplished without us, without the United States. That's the whole point. Israel has no chance whatsoever of reducing Iran to rubble unless it uses a nuclear weapon. And if it uses a nuclear weapon, it risks having nuclear weapons used against it. And those nuclear weapons can come from any number of nuclear armed states. I think the Israelis know that. And so they're going to refrain from that. Although, as I pointed out earlier, in any last bit attempt to drag us into this war on their behalf to achieve their aims with our military power, they may threaten to use a nuclear weapon. You know, that's a nightmare. That's the last thing in the world that we in the United States want, or for that matter, anywhere else on the planet. But it's something that the Israelis will do if they, or threaten to do if we don't do as they wish. But remember this, there are also powerful forces inside the United States. I pointed to them, financial forces in New York City, as well as in the City of London banks, wealthy powers that want access and control of those oil and gas fields. Iran is the only state right now that presents real resistance to the dominance of New York City and London over the oil and gas fields. Now, the United States Armed Forces are viewed by New York and London as the arms of enforcement. We go in and we enforce compliance with our demands for control and hegemony. That's why Israel is doing what it's doing. Israel is just the vanguard for this whole business. That's why when you pointed to the similarities between what's happened in Ukraine and what happened recently inside Iran with regard to the drones was so useful. It's very important that you make that point, because the same forces are involved in both. In fact, I've heard people argue that it is one contiguous front that starts along the border between Russia and Ukraine and runs all the way down to the border between Iran and the rest of its neighbors. In other words, you can't see these as completely separate and distinct. They are linked. The Russians know that. And the Russians are not going to let Iran die on the vine. They're not going to let it be destroyed. That's why it's so important for us to intervene and stop the war, because we don't want to be drawn into a spiraling conflict that eventually escalates to the point where we and the Russians and the Chinese are loggerheads with each other.
What can Russia and China do? So Russia is a military, it's got a military pact with Iran. China's obviously does a lot of business with Iran, and Iran is part of BRICS. How involved could Russia get, despite considering what they're dealing with in Ukraine? And what could China do? Could Russia leverage the peace negotiations with Ukraine? Could China leverage the tariff negotiations in order to support Iran or end the war with Iran, with Israel?
Well, I don't think there are any peace negotiations ongoing in Ukraine. So I don't see any evidence that the Ukrainian regime intends to make peace with Russia under any and all circumstances. Now, they're at the end of their proverbial rope. They've lost over 1.5 million soldiers in the field. I don't know how many other people have been lost in Ukraine by the Ukrainian side. But the Russians are stronger than they've ever been. And the Russians can end this war, and I think they will do so on their terms when they determine that it's appropriate to do so. The Europeans have nothing to offer whatsoever. So I don't see that there's something that can be leveraged in Ukraine for our benefit or for Israel's benefit. On the contrary, I think it can make matters worse. Russia looks at Iran, and remember, Russia is at the center of the Eurasian landmass. The Caucasus Mountains and Central Asia are Russia's soft underbelly strategically much as Mexico is the soft underbelly for the United States.